Okay, this is lecture number 9. Lecture number 9 in our course on Revelation. And we're going to be starting with Revelation chapter 9. Now we covered up to, just finished up Revelation chapter 8 in the last lecture. The first 4 trumpets. And now we're starting Revelation 9 with the 5th trumpet. And Revelation 8 closed with a warning about 3 woes that were about to come. And the 5th trumpet is the first woe. The second woe is the 6th trumpet, which we'll try to get to also in this lecture, and then the 7th trumpet is the third woe, which is the second coming of Christ. So take a look at Revelation chapter 9, verses 1 to 12, the 5th trumpet, which is the first of the 3 woes. And again, a woe refers to some great calamity, usually a judgment of God as it's used in the Bible. Verses 1 and 2, a star from heaven. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star from heaven which had fallen to the earth. And the key of the bottomless pit was given to him. And he opened the bottomless pit, the smoke went up out of the pit, like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by the smoke of the pit. So a star from heaven. Now, this star is probably an angelic being. When you look at Revelation chapter 12 and verse 4, it talks about Lucifer, the dragon. His tail sweeps a third of the stars out of heaven. And then in verse 9 it talks about Satan coming to earth with all his angels with them. And so stars are often referenced in the Old and New Testament. Stars are used to symbolize angels. So this star that falls from heaven to earth is an angelic being, and it can be either a fallen angel or a good angel coming to earth. It's not necessarily a fallen angel just because he comes to earth. He's given the key to the bottomless pit, which is the abyss. And I think it's likely that this is a good angel. If you look at Revelation 21 and 2, it says, "And I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key of the abyss and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years." So that's obviously a good angel that comes down from heaven, having the key of the abyss. And so I would think this may be the same angel here. So it's probably a good angel. He opens the pit, the bottomless pit, the abyss, and smoke comes out, and the smoke darkens the sun and the air. Now verses 3 to 6 talk about the occupants of the abyss and their release. They're the locusts from the abyss. So take a look at verses 3 to 6 of Revelation 9. "And out of the smoke came forth locusts upon the earth. And power was given them as the scorpions of the earth have power. And they were told that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing, nor any tree, but only the men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. And they were not permitted to kill anyone, but to torment for 5 months. And their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it stings a man. And in those days men will seek death and will not find it, and they will long to die, and death flees from them."
Do you take that to mean somebody cannot commit suicide then?
I don't know if I'd go it's a tough one to call here. There might just be a lot of people hoping that they die, but not willing to take their own life, but not actually experiencing it. It would take a rather tremendous miracle. I know that God could do it to prevent people who want to commit suicide from committing suicide, but I don't think that's necessitated by this passage. There may be a possibility, though. The locusts from the abyss here, it's my contention that the locusts are demons. If you look at Luke 8, I think the thing that gives them away as demons, this description of these locusts, they begin to sound, as the passage goes on, they sound less and less like locusts. And then when we find out what the abyss is according to the Scriptures, we see that that's the abode of certain demons. Luke chapter 8, verses 26 to 33. In this passage, Jesus is dealing with a demon-possessed man. And in verse 30 of Luke chapter 8, it says, "And Jesus asked him, 'What is your name?' And he said, 'Legion,' for many demons had entered him. And they were entreating him not to command them to depart into the abyss." And you can read that further when you get a chance, that passage how Christ cast the demons out and they go into the swine. But they're begging, certain demons are begging not to be thrown into the abyss. Look at Revelation chapter 17 and verse 8. Revelation 17 and verse 8. "The beast that you saw was and is not, and is about to come up out of the abyss and to go to destruction." And so it goes on talking about this beast, the Antichrist. But then when we look further at actually there's another passage in here too as well that talks about the beast, the false prophet, and the dragon, Lucifer himself, and 3 frogs come out of him there that turn out to be demons. And I'm not sure if that's in Revelation 16 or not. In Revelation 16 and verse 14. Verses 13 and 14, "I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits like frogs, for they are spirits of demons, performing signs, which go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them together for the war of the great day of God the Almighty." So, the beast, the false prophet, and the dragon, 3 unclean spirits coming out of them, for they're spirits of demons. So the beast is a demon. The Antichrist is going to be a demon-possessed man, and this demon that possesses him in the tribulation period is released from the abyss, according to Revelation 17 and verse 8. Revelation 11:7 also mentions the beast that comes up out of the abyss. And so the Antichrist is going to be possessed by a demon from the bottomless pit. Now, in Revelation 20, we find some further information about the abyss, locking it in with demons, with fallen angels, spirit beings called demons, unclean spirits. Because in Revelation 20, verses 1 to 3, it says, "And I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key of the abyss, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, the serpent of old, who was the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and threw him into the abyss, and shut it, and sealed it over him, so that he should not deceive the nations any longer, until 1,000 years were completed. After these things he must be released for a short time." And you can read more about that throughout this passage, the first 10 verses, the point where Lucifer eventually gets released from the bottomless pit. So Lucifer himself is a spirit being. He is a demon, a fallen angel, and he's going to be chained up someday. He is not chained up right now. Someday he is going to be chained up in the abyss, the bottomless pit. Right now, it would still be, if God asked Satan, "Where were you?" Satan would say the same thing that he said to God when he was about to mess with Job. He would say, "Well, I was roaming east and west around the whole earth." Lucifer moves freely at this point. Most demons do roam freely. In fact, just look at Job 1, 6, and 7 there. In fact, I think it's important enough for us to look into this passage here. Job chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. Now there was a day when the sons of God, that the angels, came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "From roaming about on the earth and walking around on it." So it's apparent in the Scriptures that many demons, and probably most demons, roam freely. Lucifer himself. However, there are certain demons that are chained up in the abyss. So the abyss is the abode of possibly the most vicious demons who have gone too far. God has drawn the line and said, "You've gone too far," and they've been chained up in the abyss. And so in Revelation 9, I believe these locusts are demons. They're described as very different from real locusts. And they come out of the abyss, which is a place where demons are chained up and can no longer roam freely. So you have some demons that are chained and others roam freely. Now, speaking of the chained, they're spirit beings, so being chained up, it seems to be more of a symbolic language, not literally chained up. Now, we don't have time to go into it too deeply, but in Genesis 6, 1 to 8, when the sons of God, and every reference to the sons of God, B'nai Elohim, in the Old Testament, I think all the evidence points to them being angels. Even when the Jews worked on the Septuagint and translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek, they translated the B'nai Elohim, sons of God, into the angels of God. And I think the evidence is real strong that somehow angels took on some type of bodily form and cohabited with woman and bore offspring. And as a punishment, in Jude verses 6 and 7 and 2 Peter chapter 2 verses 4 and 5 seems to indicate, talking about those same angels, that they were chained up. And so it seems that these may be the demons that are chained up in the abyss, the ones who cohabited with woman. Now Matthew 22:30 says that Jesus says that in the resurrection we'll be like the angels who we will not marry or be given in marriage. We won't be having sex and all. But that's mentioned in the 3 synoptic gospels. And 2 out of the 3 times it says, Jesus distinctly says, the angels in heaven do not marry. So the emphasis there is on good angels, not on fallen angels and what they might do. Because fallen angels obviously do go outside of God's will. There are good angels that have taken bodily form and have eaten dinner with Abraham, that were able to walk around, and so apparently demons can also take bodily form, and it may be that some demons have cohabited with woman, and because of that they're chained up in the bottomless pit, the abyss, as a punishment for it. And I would see these locusts as quite possibly the sons of God from Genesis 6. But these demons have the power of scorpions. That would entail a swift, painful sting. These demons will torment non-believers. Only those who don't have the seal of God on their forehead. So they'll only be able to torment non-believers, yet they will not hurt the grass, the trees, or the earth. Now that's the opposite of real locusts. Real locusts don't mess with humans, but they hurt all the vegetation. And so there's another indication that these are not literal locusts here. These demons are not permitted to kill anyone. They torment people instead for 5 months. which is about the length of the season that locusts strike. And their torment is like the sting of a scorpion, and inflicted men will seek death, but will not die. This sounds a lot like the situation in Mark chapter 9, verses 17 to 27, where Christ is talking, and there's a man's son, says, and one of the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I brought you my son, possessed with a spirit which makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it dashes him to the ground, and he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth and stiffens out. And I told your disciples to cast it out, and they could not do it." But just what occurs with demon possession, what can occur at times. Sometimes demons will possess a man and make him a world ruler and make him more attractive to everybody else. And we've probably seen that, I would think, in the case of Adolf Hitler, and we're definitely going to see it in the case of the Antichrist. But there are also times when demons will possess people and torment them and take over the control of their brain, and speak through them, take over the control of their personality, to where they will not have a choice. So there is that possibility, Jeff, now that I give it a second thought. If the torment inflicted by these locusts, by these demons, if that entails demon possession, then there would be a way where a person could deep down inside long to kill himself, but not even be able to do that. He could seek death, but would not even be able to do that because the demon has taken control of the whole body, so that the demon is speaking through the vocal cords. The demon is saying this and saying that. So a person could then desire, if demon possession is entailed, a person could desire to be put to death, but not even be able to break through, because the personality is totally controlled by the demon himself. But whatever the case, the locust from the abyss in the scriptures is the abode of the most vicious demons who are chained up, symbolically speaking, whereas most demons roam freely. So since they're from the abyss, it seems that these locusts are in fact demons here in Revelation 9 in the fifth trumpet. Yeah.
Do you think that they're talking about the mark on the forehead? Do you think that when you become saved, you receive some sort of spiritual marking? Yeah.
Well, I'd say yes and no. Yes, if you mean if that's what I think the symbolic language there is that although it's much more literal, the marking of the mark of the beast. I think that God is just saying that He marks those who are His, like the guy who owns cattle would mark his cattle and stuff. So symbolically speaking, we are marked. The Scriptures talks about the seal of the Holy Spirit, and so I think it's just a symbolic, poetic way of saying that those who are God's, those who belong to God, true believers, will not be inflicted by these locusts. And if these locusts are demons, it's real consistent, because the Scriptures also seem to indicate that though demons can mess with Christians, they cannot possess them. So if the torment gets to that point of massive multitudes of non-believers possessed in the last days, which wouldn't surprise me in the least, because the more and more quote-unquote mental illness cases that we come up with in this country, I have to wonder what percentage of the people that they consider mentally ill, what percentage of the people actually are demon-possessed. And there are lots of people that walk up and down the streets of Bremerton that are holding conversations with themselves on a regular basis. Now, I'm not saying they're demon-possessed, but I'm just, it's unfortunate that is never considered by those in the quote-unquote mental health field. They'll just assume that there is no such thing as demons or demon possession. Okay, verses 7 to 10, the appearance of these locusts or demons. Verses 7 to 10, Revelation 9. And the appearance of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle, and on their heads, as it were, crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. And they had their hair like the hair of woman, and their teeth were like the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots of many horses rushing to battle. And they have tails like scorpions, and stings in their tails, and in their tails is the power to hurt men for 5 months. And so the appearance of the locusts, these demons, they're like horses prepared for battle. Now, it seems to be stated that they're militarily superior to man. In the Old Testament, the number of horses you had, especially they were horses with chariots, but the number of horses you had was kind of an indication of how powerful you were. Just kind of like today, it's the number of nuclear warheads you have that determines how powerful you are. And so that the appearance like horses prepared for battle seems to talk about the fact they're militarily superior to mankind. It talks about them wearing crowns of gold. Ephesians 6:12 is talking about the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places, the principalities, the powers. These are ruling demons, apparently. Not lower echelon demons, but some of the baddest boys that Lucifer has. And they've been chained up for such a long time, and now they've been released for a short time, and they're going to take out their vengeance on man. They have faces like men. Faces like men. When something is compared to is called man-like in the scriptures, often it's because the emphasis there is on intelligence. Man being differentiated from the beast. You know what would be interesting too, John, if you get a chance, is to look up in that passage and see if where it says faces like men, to see if it's anthropos. Yeah. And because I would assume it would be anthropos, but I could be wrong. But it also mentions that they have hair like woman, which could talk about either that the hair was a sign for submissiveness, yet they just got done mentioning they had face like men. So then that's man generically. But they're being described somewhat in you don't know if they use the masculine pronoun for the locusts? Well, whatever the case, they have hair like woman. Now, the woman's long hair is a sign of submissiveness, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 1 to 16. But in verses 4 and verse 14 of 1 Corinthians 11, it says that if a man has long hair, it is a shame, it dishonors him, because long hair is supposed to be a sign of submissiveness. Now that would seem to indicate then that there may be, there's a shame or this something very dishonorable about these, and if they're demons, it'd be pretty obvious. Because, and especially the demons of Jude that left their proper domain and then cohabited with women. They have teeth of lions. That talks about the fact that they're fierce and devouring. They have breastplates of iron. It implies that they're immune to destruction. And they have the sound of wings like many chariots rushing to battle. It kind of implies the terror of the intimidating sound of the approaching enemy. Kind of like the enemy is coming at you so numerous, and you can hear the clanging of their armor as they're coming closer and closer and closer. Now, some people have said that these locusts are helicopters, and John's just trying to describe modern warfare, and that the sound of the wings like many chariots rushing to battle is the sound that the helicopter makes. And that there's, machine guns on the helicopters, and this is all the stuff that John's trying to explain. I find it kind of unlikely And I think it's just kind of us trying to read our modern day into back there, though I think that there is a possibility for that in some passages. I find that very unlikely here. The abyss, the description of these locusts seems to be more demonic than anything else. Now they have tails like scorpions, with stings in their tails, the power to inflict man with pain for 5 months. Again, it could be very symbolic language here. But there is the possibility that this infliction could entail demonic possession, although demons do, rather than just possessing man, at times they do inflict men with diseases. And in fact, sometimes Christ would walk up to an epileptic and cast a demon out of him, and their epilepsy would be gone. So I'm not saying everybody with epilepsy is demon-possessed, but a demon can possess somebody, and sometimes the only sign that you'll see is the pain and the torture that they're going through, and it could just be a disease or a sickness. Now their leader is mentioned in verse 11 of Revelation chapter 9. They have as king over them the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and the Greek he has the name Apollyon. So that their leader is a king, the angel of the abyss. The Hebrew name is Abaddon, the Greek name is Apollyon. Both names mean destruction. Some believe that he is Satan, because Satan is the king of the demons. Revelation 12:9 alludes to this, Matthew 25:41, Matthew 12:24-27. But others believe that he is just the highest ranking demon that is chained in the abyss. So he's kind of like one of Satan's right-hand demons that was chained up for a long time, and so he's the highest ranking one there. And that's kind of the position I hold. It's obviously nothing I'd be dogmatic about. Verse 12 is further warning given here. The first woe is past. Behold, 2 woes are still coming after these things. So the first woe is past, and now 2 more woes are to follow, the 6th and the 7th trumpets. Now it's interesting, we need to remember that demons are superior to man in power and intellect, but God is superior to all creation. Therefore we need to trust in the power that only Jesus Christ can give us over demons, and we need to put on the full armor of God. By the way, the passages there with full armor of God, Ephesians 6, verses 10-18, and the Luke chapter 10, verses 18-20, on the authority that we have over demons through Jesus Christ. But that's His authority given to us, not our own power. The 6th trumpet is the second woe, and it's mentioned in Revelation 9, verse 13-21. Take a look at verse 13. And the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God. So the 6th angel sounded his trumpet, and what is mentioned are the 4 horns of the golden altar. Now the horns are projections at the 4 corners of the altar. They're mentioned in Exodus chapter 27, verses 1 and 2. And mercy was often sought, taking hold of the horns. If you got into the temple and you ran up to the altar and you grabbed your hands on the altar and grabbed the horns, took hold of them, you could cry out for mercy. Now this was attempted, I believe, in 1 Kings chapter 1, verses 50-53, and chapter 2, verses 28-34. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was Joab, the ruthless general of David's army. When David was dying, he told Solomon, make sure you kill Joab. And so he sent Benaiah, one of David's 30 mighty men, and Benaiah went to kill him, and Joab, like a coward, after he had ruthlessly killed so many people in cold blood, ran into the temple and grabbed hold of the tabernacle at the time. The temple wasn't put up yet, and grabbed hold of the horns of the altar to try to beg for mercy. But Benaiah, as far as he was concerned, he had an order from the king, he was going to bring it about. and executed them on the spot.
Chapter 2, verse 28.
So now the sixth angel sounds his trumpet, and he hears a voice from the four horns. So the four horns, that's where people would go when they sought mercy. So it's kind of implied that man is really going to need some mercy here when this trumpet comes about. There's four angels bound at the Euphrates River mentioned in verse 14. One saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, "Release," so a voice from the four horns, "release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." Only evil fallen angels are bound. Jude 6 talks about fallen angels being bound. So some of them in Revelation 20 verses 1 to 2, Satan will be bound someday. So these are demons, these four angels. The Euphrates River is the longest river in Western Asia. It's 1,700 miles long. And the sixth angel that blows, the sixth trumpet, he releases the four bound demons. Now the Euphrates River is the boundary between Israel and the kings of the east. It's the globe again. Hopefully they've got the river on there to try to bigger river as you can get.
Well, I've got probably a photo of that.
Yeah, if you could look in your Bible, please. Don't. Oh yeah, they've got them drawn on there. I don't see the label though, so I'm sure that's going to be it right here. But the Euphrates River, if you just look at that, and then you look where China and India, a lot of the nations from that area would have to cross through that to get through. So this may be, now we don't know for sure on this particular passage, but this may be what's going to be mentioned a little bit later in this trumpet. There is the possibility that this will be the invasion during the Battle of Armageddon of the troops from the kings of the east. But these four angels are probably four demons who rule four nations of the east, or have some type of rule in areas around it. Now that area has always been a hotbed of, since it's around the area of Babylon and stuff, it's been a hotbed of pagan religions. But in Daniel chapter 10, we don't have time to turn there, but in verses 12 to 13 and verses 20 to 21, and in Ezekiel 28 verses 11 to 16, there are multitudes of passages in the Bible that indicate that angels that, Satan is referred to by the Apostle Paul as the god of this world, and apparently he has delegated, he has a highly organized, he's highly organized his troops so that you do have rulers over nations that are demons, that are trying to influence human leaders for the bad. And so that might be the case here. These four demons may rule four nations or four kingdoms of the east. And so there is the possibility that the kings of the east could be related here. The mission of the four demons is found in verse 15. And the four angels who have been prepared for that hour, for the hour and day and month and year, were released so that they might kill a third of mankind. So the mission of these four demons was to kill a fourth of mankind. Now remember, a third of mankind. Now remember earlier, Revelation 6:8, 1/4 of mankind had already died. That was from the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So if you had 100 people, just to throw out a round number, and you remove 1/4, you'd be left with 75. Now 1/3 are removed, and 1/3 of 75 is 50. You started out with 100, so that tells us that up to 1/2 of mankind will be wiped out during the tribulation period. Now this does not count martyrs and natural deaths. So, no matter what kind of plagues mankind has been hit with, or what kind of wars, the population of the world continues to increase geometrically. Yet every once in a while you have something like the worldwide flood in the time of Noah, or the tribulation period, which will knock mankind's population down drastically. In the days before Christ returns, the tribulation period, more than 1 or every 2 people on the planet Earth will die. So that's how devastating these judgments will be. That's why in Matthew it says that unless those days be cut short, no flesh would be saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Yeah.
Is there a reason that won't take this long? Go back.
Oh, bummer. Oh, yeah, it's called the wrong reason. Oh, that's a bummer. Well, such is life.
You got that good.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. Okay, so now the mission of these 4 demons to kill 1/3 of mankind, and they were prepared for the exact moment to start their mission. Now the number of the troops, the armies, are given in verse 16. And the number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. So the number of the armies of the horsemen are 200 million troops. Now, John wanted to make it clear that I heard the number. I'm not making. It was at that time there was not even 200 million people on the planet Earth when John was writing that. So he wanted to make it real clear that he did hear that number. So 200 million troops, and they may be the kings of the East. That's the position I hold. When we see the description of these, it sounds a lot like the locust type thing. It could be swarms and swarms of demons. We don't know for sure, but I think there's a good chance that these could be the kings of the East. Now, 2 of the kings of the East, 2 of the biggest kings of the East would probably be China and India. And China presently has a population of over 1 billion people, which for non-math students would be 1,000 million. India's population, China's the most populated in the world. India's population presently is about 800 million, which is just 200 million short of China's 1 billion. Now, China makes up 1/5 of the world's population. India makes up 1/6 of the world's population. So together, India plus China make over 1/3 of the world's population. Now, when you add them together, plus their allies in that area, it is possible to right now for them to raise up 200 million troop army. Now, if Russia and her Muslim allies invaded Israel, the Chinese would probably take that as a threat to the security of every nation on earth, including themselves, because it would be Russia's attempt to take over the entire world by one strategic move. That would probably be enough for them to have an incredibly radical threat. And if you had 2 billion people gathered together, just one out of 10 of them, if you raised up that many people in a makeshift army and then just marched on into the Middle East, you would have 200 million troops. So this is a possibility. It does stretch the imagination, but not to the degree that it would have to stretch John's imagination. He didn't even have that many people on earth. Now we've got 10 times that amount of people just from the kings of the East alone. The Euphrates River is tied up too when you turn to Revelation 16. And this is why it could be the start of Armageddon that's spoken about here in the 6th trumpet. Because if you look at Revelation 16, as John said, the Euphrates River gets dried up. Look at verses 12 to 16. And the 6th angel poured out his bowl upon the earth, upon the great river, the Euphrates, and its water was dried up, that the way might be prepared for the kings from the east. And I saw, and it goes on further, about the Antichrist, the false prophet, and Lucifer, then in verse 16, and they gathered them together to the place which in Hebrew is called Armageddon. So here you have three demons mentioned: the demon that possesses the Antichrist, the demon that possesses the false prophet, and Lucifer himself. And you've got the Euphrates River being dried up to make way for the kings of the east, and it's the battle of Armageddon. So this could very well, the sixth trumpet and the sixth seal, and the sixth bowl could be almost synonymous here, and this could be the start of Armageddon. Now the description of the army makes it hard for us to understand them as humans, but it could be that John is trying to describe modern warfare, so it's a real tough passage to figure out. Verses 17 to 19. And this is how I saw in the vision the horses and those who sat on them. The riders had breastplates the color of fire and hyacinth and of brimstone. And the heads of the horses are like the heads of lions, and out of their mouths proceed fire and smoke and brimstone. A third of mankind was killed by these three plagues, by the fire and the smoke and the brimstone which proceeded out of their mouths. For the power of the horses is in their mouths and in their tails, for their tails are like serpents and have heads, and with them they do harm. So the riders have breastplates of fire, hyacinth, which is a purplish color, and brimstone. The horses, some people think, and I kind of lean in this direction, I can't be dogmatic on it, I'm only speculating. The horses could be a description of modern tanks, having heads like lions out of their mouths, come fire, smoke, and brimstone. Tails, like serpents, have heads and do harm. They have a machine gun on their back. But they are going to kill 1/3 of mankind. And so this could be, I've got in my notes, an obvious description of modern warfare. As I've grown in the Lord, I don't think it's as obvious as I thought it was when I was a young know-it-all. But I think it could be a description of modern warfare, though I would take out the word obvious. The response of the unsaved is found in verses 20 and 21, which conclude this chapter. And the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of the works of their hands, so as not to worship demons, and the idols of gold and of silver and of brass and of stone and of wood, which can neither see, nor hear, nor walk. And they did not repent of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their immorality, nor of their thefts. The response of the unsaved world: those who survived did not repent. Metanoia in the Greek means to turn from your sinful practices, not just to confess and acknowledge it is wrong, but to turn from sinful habits. But those who survived the unsaved world, they did not repent. They continued in their sinful works. John chapter 3 verses 19 to 21 tells us that some people, when the light of the world came, Jesus, they liked the darkness. They loved the darkness rather than the light, for their deeds were evil. They didn't want to come to the light unless they had their deeds exposed. But these people continued to worship demons. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 8, verse 4, and 1 Corinthians 10, verses 19 and 20, in one passage he says, demons are nothing, they're lifeless objects. But then in another passage he says that even though demons are nothing, there's demons behind them, so those who worship idols actually worship demons. So these people worship idols of gold, silver, brass, stone, wood, idols that can't see, hear, or walk, but there are demons, spirit entities, guiding them and leading them to worship these false idols. So in effect, they're worshiping demons. These people are guilty of murder. Jesus Christ in Matthew 5, 21 and 22 puts, if you just desire to murder someone, in essence you're a murderer, though you haven't committed the physical crime, so murder stems from a violent heart. At the same time, non-believers of that that they are going to be probably turning in believers and are going to have the blood of the saints on their hands. They're guilty of sorceries. The word, we get our word pharmacy from this word, from the word in the Greek, and it's like a drugstore, and is a pharmacy. And the use of drugs, whether to escape reality or to try to find a higher degree of reality or to cast a spell on someone, that was hand in hand with the world of the occult and magic arts. And it still is. It's just that today in secular society we view everything from a secular mindset, and we need to recognize that the world, you take hallucinogenic drugs and it's going to open you up. It's going to open you up to the world of the occult and the demonic influence. They were guilty of immorality, which is basically any sex outside of marriage is considered immorality by the Bible. Guilty of thefts, which stems from selfishness and greed. They did not repent of their sinful works. Men can fear God. The Bible teaches men can fear God without choosing to trust in Christ. Some fear God and still curse Him. And that's the response of the unsaved world in this passage. So that's the Revelation 9, the fifth and sixth trumpets, the locust, and then the 200 million troops.